Forfeit the game before somebody else takes you out of the frame. Or put your name to shame, cover up your face. You can't run the race, the pace is too fast, it just won't last.
Welcome to XCW's Men of Honor. Today we're going to talk about mid-carders, the ones who never made it. There's been, everybody starts out at the bottom of the totem pole in XCW. Some make it, some don't. Corey Lee started out as a cruiserweight, then he became a mid-carder, won the International Championship, but he didn't stop there. Went after the XCW Championship, so ladies and gentlemen, Corey Lee. Started out in the XCW, went straight into an amazing triple threat match in his debut. Within a year, was the Extreme Champion. Didn't know if he was going to make it, but he did. Former XCW Champion, Brandon Hardcore Hobbs. The man who ended up making it. Started out as a tag team champion in Team Reign. Later, ended up as the XCW champion, even wrestled the main event, WrestleMania 1, Vapor. And then there's Hazard, started out a tag team champion all on himself, and by mid-2005 won his first XCW championship. But let's talk about the mid-carders who didn't make it. The ones who weren't as successful, who were top stars, great wrestlers, maybe even not so much, but made it. Maybe they won an Extreme Championship or an International Championship, but never made it to the big time. Never won that XCW Championship. Let's start off with, you can call him two names, either Deacon Gerke or Madman James Gerke. Anyone have any comments?
Go ahead.
He had potential, but like you said, there's some that come in, they have the potential, but their egos get the best of it.
That may be the issue there, yeah.
Me personally, I'm one of the new guys that is in XCW at this present moment on the roster. It's a crisis. I do think he's starting to get an ego, but we'll see what happens. But as of Madman James Gerke or Deacon Gerke, as Brother Jones brought him in to be,
He had a lot good going for him when he first started in XCW for sure.
He started out good. He had some good matches, but I tell you what, when I wrestled him, it was probably, I didn't like that match. I didn't enjoy it.
Well, I do have to say that when in Gerke's time here, I wrestled him a few times also, and I gotta say I was actually the worst match on the card at the time.
He got a bit more disappointed as his time was coming to an end. And that was sad. He had the potential, but he didn't reach up and
One
grasp
thing
it.
that man could do though was promos,
He could, definitely.
and that is something that you need. You could
charisma.
be a great wrestler, but never go anywhere because you can't cut a promo.
It's true.
Look at Chris Jones. When he first started, he couldn't cut a promo for nothing.
Definitely not. No.
Now look at him.
you got that ego.
He's got an ego, but he can back it up.
Yeah.
Let's talk about MILF Hunter.
No.
MILF Hunter started in 2003 in the XCW. 2004, he was going after the Tag Team Championships at the beginning of the year with Corruption. Later in the 2004 season, he beat Cyrus and Biohazard for the European Championship. He went through the XCW all these years. He was even a general manager, but never won anything past the European Championship. Why is that, you guys? What do you think? Why didn't MILF Hunter make it?
I think he's got a point. He sucked, and you know what? I'm glad he didn't win the
He had a
title
good
past
gimmick
WWE.
though.
He did have a very good gimmick.
It was a good gimmick, but
He wasn't fit for the gimmick.
That may be true.
Okay.
But he also performed as Phantom, which was more his speed.
Neither, because
In my eyes,
in
I just
my
didn't like the dude. Period.
Yeah.
in my eyes, I personally think, or my opinion, whatever you want to say, either or, he had good gimmicks, but he brought them a bad name because he couldn't perform the way He needed to.
Well, I can
His
agree with that.
downfall was not his in-ring ability, his promos, any of that. It was his backstage presence. Is what got
He was
him.
obnoxious, to say the
Really-
very least.
Really annoying
He's
person.
genius.
I didn't like him much
And
either.
his downfall was a huge fight with Chris Jones. It was definitely his biggest downfall. Let's talk about another one. You guys may, sucks maybe coming to your mind first, but honestly, the guy had good matches. He did a few good things in his time in the XCW. He'd won a television championship in his time in the XCW. We're talking about Disciple.
Disciple,
What was the downfall of Disciple?
Showing up.
showing up, having his presence felt. That was really his downfall.
Well, he did. I mean,
I think if
we're going to give a
showed
little bit of
up-
credit. In 2004, 2005, Disciple was definitely a main focus.
I think if he would have stayed around and showed up more, he probably would have been pretty decent. today.
Possibly, yeah.
One of his best matches is with Dynamite DTC.
That is true. In 2007,
They neither one of them actually wanted to wrestle each other, but we made them, and they had a killer match.
it's true.
It wasn't his in-ring ability. He just he just fell off.
Was he sloppy? Yes, but look at WWE. Batista was sloppy,
Oh,
and I think they resemble each other a lot. They even the same sit-down powerbomb. But Disciple had good attributes, but obviously Disciple didn't make it. Disciple did come back, wrestle one match in 2011. Good or bad on seeing Disciple back? What do you think?
I wish he'd actually show up more.
it-
I actually like the guy in real life. Backstage he was a good guy, good cat. Just showing up.
like he said earlier, he fell off the bike.
Some people just lose interest, and that was it.
Next, we're going to talk about, to me, one of the most talented guys on this entire list. Probably second best out of this list. And you made your debut against him. I'm talking about Zero. Zero was amazing at his in-ring work. He was good at promos. He was the total package. Former tag team champion, former extreme champion.
Mhm.
Vapor here. If you, what about Zero?
He had great potential to be a top star. And my personal favorite match with Zero was for the power title when he back body dropped me through the table. That was probably one of his best matches. Went out and
And you gotta also think that he's a tough son of a bitch to
Those
break
Zero
almost
Stomp
every
sucks.
bone. Break almost every bone in his back and shattered his arm and his leg in an accident, and he came back after all of that and then faced
Sim-
Brandon Hobbs and Psychor all the way in Havoc 08. Amazing.
Yeah. To have that kind of courage to have an accident like that, and just to come back to wrestle when he knows he's got that potential fatal injury mark, he's right there on that line. He's riding that hairline. And to come and do a triple threat match with me and Psychor.
It's still at the best visibility.
Exactly. He gave it all that he had, that match. The match was an all-around great match.
Definitely.
He is one of my favorite people to wrestle. It was like, he was in your mind whenever you were wrestling him.
Yeah, he knew exactly what was going on in the ring.
Exactly.
But like I said, bar none, he's probably at least number 2 on this list. I
By
loved
far.
Zero as a person and as a wrestler just as much, if not even better. I love Zero. He was a great
I
guy.
wish he would come back.
Definitely. Next, we're going to talk about the man who wrestled Brandon Hobbs in his final match in XCW. He had a very short run in 2009. We're talking about Jay Banks.
Once again, another great superstar potential but he fell off that bandwagon,
He
man.
definitely didn't keep his interest in. I think he had some bad omens that really kept him down.
Other than that, he was a great wrestler. He got sloppy at times, but who doesn't get sloppy at times? I think in order to be able to correct those flaws, you have to practice. You got to keep up your, conditioning and such. But in the long run, like I said, like you said, he just lost interest.
He was also a great guy backstage too.
He's very funny.
I'm only here for the beads.
You helped train Jay Banks. What happened?
Lost interest. We say it all the time. Number one thing in this business is heart.
Yeah.
Something that Jay Banks obviously didn't have very much of. But I know someone who did have heart, and though we don't typically have, don't have cruiserweights for Jay on this list. One person had a heart and was a cruiserweight and built himself up, like Corey Lee did. Started out a cruiserweight, just built up. That's what you got to do. One person that did that was Knuckles.
Yes.
Knuckles started as a cruiserweight, but just especially joining Hazard and the Canadian Army Incorporated definitely gave a huge push to Knuckles. What do you guys think about Knuckles?
Knuckles, wow. Natural. Whenever you say natural, that boy had it.
He was good.
Natural talent. Some of us have it, some of us don't. We work into it. If it wasn't for his injuries that he has now, I think he would be sitting here today with us.
He also went off to the Army, which is another reason why he left us in 2009. Periodically he came back, obviously with his heart condition and his back injury now. He can't be here in XCW, but anything else on Knuckles? I mean, the slow rise, he did have a slow rise to the top. Once he got there.
Whenever you mention Iron Lung, you think of LOL. His matches with LOL. Last week I've had some pretty good matches. He always had those top of the line cruiserweight matches that you love to watch.
Definitely. He competed in his last match against Eternal Darkness.
Be interesting to see if he was still here today, where he would be.
Definitely. Especially after, like I said, after his stint with the Canadian Army Incorporated. That was definitely a rise to superstardom.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about somebody a little different. Someone who was an Extreme Power champion and also a tag team champion, Hazard, Lucifer.
Lucifer was around for a really long time.
He debuted in 2003.
And, after, getting hit by cars and having his freaking hair chopped off
Yeah.
and everything else, he was a stranger. I didn't like talking to him backstage. Whenever we
Really
Lucifer
didn't have
man.
much to say.
You wait for this match, you just look at you.
He's very quiet.
Alright, man,
But
Yeah,
you gotta
like-
admit, Lucifer had some great matches, and I can recall his matches with you. Also, Lucifer's matches with Eternal Darkness from the 04 season.
Good God.
And they have something in history. The NEW stars attacked him. But Lucifer's biggest downfall, I think, was his attitude. He didn't listen very well. Kind of fought the system, and that's something you can't do. Next, he wrestled one match in the XCW, and he had it all to make it big in the XCW, but we're talking about Tyler Branson. Too Sexy Tyler Branson. I don't understand Tyler Branson.
I loved it. Come out, who in the right mind? Too Sexy Tyler Brands. Come out with a peak camera, taking pictures of himself, Deny a fan an autograph and have a killer match and then never show up again.
He's like one of those one-hit wonders, man.
Something like that, yeah.
He's like Death Leopard, okay? He came out to Death Leopard's photograph.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s, everybody thought it was going to be a one-hit wonder, and then it took off. Death Leopard just fucking took off. As in...
Milli Vanilli, not so much.
Yeah, right.
That one's for you, Chris.
Now, as in for Too Sexy Tyler Branson, I had personally had the pleasure of training him alongside Hazard over here, and right off the bat, man, he had that raw natural talent. He had the gimmick, he had the charisma, he had the potential to straight off the bat, boom, here's a superstar, he's brand new, and he's there.
But what happened to him? What was his downfall? I think he overworked himself.
He was worried about how society looked at him for being
Because
the way he was.
we can say that today the only person who's actually admitted it, the only person in XCW who's ever admittedly said that they were gay.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of his
Attributes.
that was his biggest to him it was his biggest flaw, and he didn't know how the XCW wrestlers were going to look at him.
Me
I think that
personally,
may be his ultimate downfall.
I personally think he was afraid of how society would have looked at him because of the whole, oh look, he's gay, but, you know, me personally, I don't think they changed the man who he is.
I told him, I was like, jokingly, I told him, like, you know what, Tyler, I want you to wrestle, I want you to be here. I don't care if you bring a bag of dicks to the show. I want you here. But it just wasn't enough for Tyler Branson.
I know.
Bring a bag of dicks.
Next, we're going to talk about Dark Slayer. The two of you know Dark Slayer.
Turn channel match is the only thing I remember from that guy.
Rainbow Slayer.
Dark Slayer was a former television champion, and though he did have the change of channel match, he got better with time. He wrestled his final match against DTC. I personally loved Dark Slayer's character. He was very enthusiastic in everything he did.
I love his music.
And his taunt. Dark Slayer never made it. And he was the prodigy of Dylan Bostic. Like I said, I think honestly on Dark Slayer it's too bad. But I think maybe what you were talking about with interest maybe played a factor in Dark Slayer's
I
time
also
in
think
XCW.
it might have been since he was the prodigy of Dylan, that the ego. He was trying
Not so much
to
the
he
ego,
was
he
trying to
was-
fit in Dylan's shoes and he couldn't do it.
He was living in a shadow. Probably never thought he could get out of the shadow.
That scares a lot of people off.
The only other match that he wrestled that didn't involve Dylan Bostic was just very few here in the XW. Mainly his last match against DTC for the television title. So that maybe played a good factor. Vapor, the next one is all you, buddy.
Alrighty.
Bull God. He won a European
Wow.
Championship in 2003.
Oh. He did have potential. I think he did.
Definitely, yes.
He's all around. He had the heart for it, but I think at the time, it just wasn't something he was interested in pursuing. But I know I've talked to him outside. Me and Genocide both talked to him, and he's interested in possibly coming back. And I'd love to see it.
Me too. Definitely. That would be definitely interesting to see Bull God back in the
So I love the gimmick and
Yeah, everybody is like
Played
Bull
it.
God. That's kind of stupid. But the actual meaning behind Bull God is they're looked up as a god. They're a mythical god. Bull God is. It's a mythical god who gets many women. So that's.
and the music just.
I have another one that I didn't put on this list that definitely should have been, and that's a Little Pimp.
Oh,
Little
Little
Pimp
Pimp.
very close personal friend of mine, yours. See him every now and again. Talk to him all the time. He's still on the fence. He wants to, but scheduling wise, it's hard for him.
And I mean, I can honestly say I never looked at Little Pimp as a great wrestler, not even a good wrestler.
Had a awesome gimmick though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Bringing that up, he goes back. Some people have raw natural talent, okay, for the wrestling ability. That's the in-ring. But some people just have that charisma to play a gimmick.
And Little Pimp never really had the training that we give now.
That's true. Yeah, that is very true.
We may have never even actually scratched the surface of what Little Pimp had. Cause I mean, you have Corey Lee, who is in the new training, who was part of the new training that we give, and look where he is. Lil Pimp never had that new kind of training. It's all about training too.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those people never had the training that we can give now.
Speaking of Blackout Ink, let's talk about somebody who didn't have much of mic skills, didn't really do much in character, but was an awesome wrestler, Stingray.
Stingray. Didn't have much of a mic skill, but damn it, that man was funny.
He was. But it was more outside of the ring. He was a very serious character in the ring. But get him outside.
But he was one hell of a wrestler.
He
though.
was. In his last match, I don't think we could ever have given Stingray a better last match than we did against Cynical. And that was the first time they'd ever wrestled at all. And we didn't know how that was going to turn out. And Ian and Hazard were like, man, we really, we'd love to do this match. It's like a Blackout Ink versus VK2 match. We want to give that to the show, but they've never worked together. They don't know each other very well. What's this going to turn out like? And wow, did we fuck up. We should have put them together years ago. Stingray he never really accomplished anything in the XCW except for tag team titles. But
And that one he was just kind of given.
But Stingray was also in and out, but he's pursued a lot of careers and a lot of different things, which I think was his downfall in the XCW. But speaking of downfalls, 2003 season, 2004 season, 2005 season, we've seen him reinvent himself time and time again. Not only did he return, but he returned and reinvented himself. Nick Klaus,
God,
former European Cruiserweight Tag Team Champion.
his progression from 2003 till his end was a big jump.
Definitely.
He went from being like super sloppy and not really fun to watch, and then in the middle you're just like,
By Void 56.
you're just like, man, he's actually decent
See,
to
the
watch.
thing
And at
with-
his end, you're just like, holy crap.
See, the thing with the Void 56 Team 2 Extreme things, those guys were friends outside. And they would have punching contests outside the ring. So when they're inside the ring, what made their matches even more is them being stiff, ended up in them actually having good matches because they were really punching each other. You're just like, oh, he just knocked his tooth out.
But
But they made it interesting.
none of the other Void 56 members or Team 2 Extreme members made it to the level that Nick Klaus did, and that's why Nick Klaus is on this list, and you don't really see any of the other ones. Nick Klaus definitely stood out from the rest, and Nick Klaus was in the XCW a couple seasons longer than the rest of them, so
Yeah, because the only thing you could say about Team 2 Extreme was the promo Blaze, wasn't it? Had
yes.
the promo with Devil where he sang the Devil. That's the only thing they really had.
Right. Next we're going to talk about Donnie Dark. Donnie Dark did a lot in the
Donnie
XCW.
Dark.
He did. He did a lot in the XCW. He won Extreme
God.
King. He was a European champion, a Cruiserweight champion. And he had the potential, and he actually won the Extreme King, was going for the world title, fucked himself. And left the XCW. He came back in one show, wrestled Joker, won the match. The kid had potential also, but his lifestyle kept him down.
Yeah, he did do a lot, like you said. And I personally liked watching his matches. I mean, at first, yeah, he was like another Nick Klaus at first. Wasn't really entertaining to watch. Then as he got older, his matches were getting better and he was more enjoyable to watch. And then he had the chance to be a big time star, but ended up just up and leaving.
Somebody else I want to talk about is Cyrus. Cyrus, nobody really got to work with him here, but I loved Cyrus. He had it all. I mean, never really used the mic much, but we never gave him that opportunity either. So we don't really know. I know if we would have given him the mic and let him do it, he would have been amazing, because just the way he is. But in ring, I loved watching Cyrus, and he was a former European champion in his own right. But I loved watching Cyrus. He was definitely ahead of his time, in a time where we didn't have training like Hazard's in. So Cyrus,
I'd love for him to come back too.
definitely. Another one, Hazard, you know very well, Skylar Stone.
Broke his nose at a EBW show.
Never seen him again.
Scared him away. For Skylar Stone not coming back, this guy.
Would you love to see Skylar Stone come back?
Oh, yeah.
Is their match that he hit, his one and only match
Against
XCW,
Disciple.
was a good match.
Definitely.
What I liked most about that match was when he went to do that senton, he jumped, and when he started to flip, he went to a ball.
Yeah. It was like ball. And it was just awesome. But Skylar Stone was entertaining. He had the mic skills, he had the wrestling skill. I think some of that was that he was the cousin of Rage from Team 2 Extreme. And when Rage left the XCW, so did Skylar Stone. And I think a lot of his issues too were couldn't put down that controller. He lives, eats, breathes, sleeps, everything's video games. And that's what Skylar Stone does. And that was his main focus, and wrestling was not.
I think he'd be a top star if he was still around.
I saved 3 of the last names that I think that we can say a lot about.
Yes.
Let's start off with D-Mac.
One hell of
I
a
know.
wrestler.
First television champion in XCW.
Hold up, camera time, and he blew it from there.
We didn't even give him the opportunity to speak. He took it. He said, "Fuck you guys, I'm gonna talk." And that's what he did.
I know you personally didn't like D-Mac. I did. I actually hung out with him a little bit more than you probably. But he had the skill. If he would have been here today, he was the Tommy Merriman before Tommy Merriman.
Definitely.
He was the guy that came out there, and you could go out there and put him with the worst possible opponent, and he would work his ass off and make that opponent look good and him look good and make that match ungodly.
Next, I want to talk about somebody that you guys all know, Rob Slater.
Amazing. Amazing. I mean, think about it. Some of the matches he's done with Genocide, me, some of the past things that he's done, he really, he may have not had the best wrestling, but if you put him out there with somebody, he can work with them. He can work, and that's the thing that you need in this business too, besides art, is being able to work.
I think another one of his main downfalls is what Brandon had mentioned, and that is just his ego.
Ego was bad. We could not put, as big as this room is, you put him and Chris Jones in the same room,
Oh, God.
one of them would have to be standing outside for their ego to be able to fit in the same room. That was his biggest thing, and plus, Justin Parsons.
Was probably his biggest downfall. Definitely.
That's where it comes into. That's something that you don't want to do. You don't want to align yourself with people in the business that are going to bring you down.
That's definitely what he did.
And he aligned himself with the enemy at the time, and it brought him down. Bad.
Rob Slater never made it past the International Championship in the XCW. And that was the only
And
championship
he had
he'd
the
won.
And he would have had the chance to.
I almost did what Rob Slater did and joined with the enemy before even XCW Parsley was interested in me. And I went to like a couple practices. I was like, I can't do this. I cannot be in a company with something like this. And then Benji mentioned you, and I was like, hell, I'm gonna fucking stay.
Guys, what do you guys know about Rob Slater from your time in UIW? Checkers.
Well,
First thing Corellia said in this whole thing.
yeah, it is. I will admit, when I wrestled him, my matches with him weren't that bad.
He can work.
He can do a
adjust
good
his
job.
style.
He does a good job. I mean, we wrestled a match. I tried to go for my finisher, my trip to sobriety on him. He turned it right into an RKO. Won the match.
Yeah, it's just like you were saying, playing with the enemy. When XCW invaded UIW before UIW's fall, it was kind of strange. I did have the chance to work with Rob Slater there. Back in '08, whenever I made my ECW debut, or XCW, my bad. Thinking about my dad's career, I'm living in the shadows again. My bad. Long story short, whenever I had that chance, like you said, he adjusts and he adapts in the middle of his matches. He makes it to where, yeah, if you're going sloppy and you guys can't work too great together, he turns it around. You know, hey, we need to start doing this, and you know, it just he makes it to where the match turns out great. But like you said, his biggest downfall was siding with the enemy and his ego.
The last one we're going to talk about, I guarantee everyone's going to have something to say. Arguably, number one on this list, the best wrestler on this entire list. And probably one of the best wrestlers to ever come into XCW. A former international champion, Tommy the Man Merriman.
Amazing wrestler. He had the
He had
talent.
everything.
He did. He did have everything.
He was great. He was so easy to work with, and he was so funny too. He knew how to make you laugh, even if you were in the middle of wrestling.
And you could be a really not so great wrestler, and he makes you look good.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's just like you said earlier. He's one of those people that he goes beyond raw natural talent. Okay.
That's for sure. Yeah.
He had the whole fucking package. He was like a wrestling god reincarnated. Okay, just like back in the 80s. Me personally, whenever I was growing up and such, and 80s became the 90s, and you know, he was like, he could have been the next Macho Man Randy Savage. He could have been the next big thing, Brock Lesnar, who was
Looked just
also
like
short.
Mini Brock.
Or he could have been the next Stone Cold Steve Austin. You give him a gimmick to play, he knew how to play it.
He had
You throw him in a match with fucking KKK or Cameron Coons, okay, which were two more short-lived people in the XCW.
Yeah, they don't deserve to be on that one.
Yeah,
No,
Definitely
they
not.
absolutely horrible. Absolutely
only-
horrible.
Cameron Coons would be the closer of the two, of
Yes.
course, but
Gaining a victory over Dead Darkness in his debut. But like I was saying, you could put Tommy the Man Merriman with KKK, and he would make KKK look like an actual member of the Ku Klux Klan, you know, hacking away at somebody. But
Tommy Merriman was definitely.
he was the man, okay? His name says said it all.
But his
Tommy
downfall
the Man Merriman.
was his life choices.
Yep. If he didn't have such
his lifestyle.
bad motives, he didn't lie all the time the way he did. You know, I think if he was just honest with himself, he'd be in a better place right now. If he just listened to his friends and
Tommy
Took advice.
should have been, undoubtedly, should have been the XCW champion. His matches with Chris Jones
Psychor.
in 2009 were absolutely untouchable.
honestly, I can say that if he didn't leave us, I probably would have wrestled him for the title instead of Brandon Hobbs.
That quite possibly could have been.
But Brandon,
But I would have came back.
he would have eventually got up there anyways.
Well, yes, yeah.
Or could end up as a triple threat or something.
That would have been.
But out of this list, who would you guys most like to see come back
I want Tommy
and
to come
break
back.
out of this shell?
I want Tommy to come back. I want Tommy to come back. That's all I can say.
To break out of the shell and come back and actually make a career out of themselves. Too Sexy Tyler Branson.
That's a good choice too. I'd like to see that too.
I'm gonna go with Cyrus.
Cyrus. And agree with all three of these so far.
Mine is actually kind of a mix. Coming from a personal, I'd love to see Stingray come back. Because he had it. We would have given him more. He would have took it. And then, of course, Tommy Merriman. That guy is...
Undoubtedly
You put...
amazing.
I would honestly would say if Tommy would have had a longer career, he may have been better than Chris Jones.
I can agree with that.
He could definitely be better than Chris Jones.
I think he was one of the best people on the mic. He had the best charisma out of everybody I've seen. Him and Chris Jones were just had the best charisma.
They were like right here with one another. They were bouncing
And
up and
think,
down.
they're right there right now, and Tommy didn't have much of a career.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if Tommy had a career.
I can agree with all of these. Every single one of them. Those would be my top picks. There's only one more that I would add to this list. And that is zero. Tyler Branson, Cyrus, Stingray, Tommy Merriman, of course. Zero.
There you're zero. Big
Those
time.
would be
Yeah.
5 great guys to bring back for the next season here in 2012. If we could get those fellas back and get them to where we are today, they would take off in brand new
I can absolutely agree. But worst comes to worst, they're not here. And
Some of them not by choice.
that's true.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Hashtag yeah.
Well then, thank you for joining us here at Men of Honor. Well, you'll see you next time. Thank you.